This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Storytellers Cafe, the number one storytelling podcast on Bharat FM, a Cincinnati-based radio station. Thank you for making this commitment every week. I thank each and every one of you who come back very sincerely each and every week to listen, learn, and enjoy. Thank you for choosing to listen to Storytellers Cafe. And let me wish all my viewers and listeners a very happy Holi. How was your Holi? As you all know, Holi is the Indian spring festival where winter crops such as wheat and mustard seeds are harvested. I so look forward to this festival, and especially this year, because as you all know, Holi signifies new hope, beginnings, new beginnings, family reunion, color, laughter, right? So tell us how your Holi was. Wishing you a very happy festival of colors. As you all know, my friends, March is a specially curated podcast on Storytellers Cafe. We are celebrating International Women's Day on Storytellers Cafe. She persisted and she broke the bias as well. India is not lacking in women storytellers. Either they are in India or away from the motherland. Amazing, talented, professional women storytellers. And we are very proud today to showcase one of these achievers on our special episode this Sunday, 20th of March at 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time. As you know, friends, Storytellers Cafe has made footprints across the world, right from Australia, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Dubai, Doha, Qatar, United Kingdom, and United States. And today we travel beyond the seven seas, beyond the Arabian Sea, to the furthest continent away from India, to Seattle in the United States. Today's guest is very dear to me. She is my family, and let's meet Lakshmi Manian, whose unique life experiences have made her what she is today, a flexible, resilient, self reflecting, strong woman. She is a daughter, sister, wife, mother, teacher, and a guide to her family and friends. Being moved ever so often from country to country, leaving behind familiar paths and comfortable work spaces, Lakshmi was able to make a home and career wherever she went. Let's talk to her to find out her story. I know she's traveled from India to Hong Kong to Saudi Arabia and to the United States, and her work has been so interesting and one of the women achievers that I would like to bring on Storytellers Cafe tonight. So without further ado, let me bring Lakshmi. Hi Lakshmi, welcome to Storytellers Cafe.
Hi, Usha. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be part of Break the Bias, Storytellers Cafe on Bharat FM. I would like to wish all your viewers, your listeners, and audience a very happy World Storytelling Day. Please take time to tell a story, listen to one, or share out a story. I would also like to wish them all a very happy Holi. I hope it was wonderful, filled with happiness and joy.
Thank you. Thank you, Lakshmi. I totally forgot 20th March is World Storytelling Day. How remiss of me. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, Happy World Storytelling Day. It's a special episode today. Not only are we celebrating Storytelling Day, we are also celebrating International Women's Day as well as Holi, the Festival of Colors. Lakshmi, what a great honor to have you on my in my studios tonight. Your career is more than four lines, but we have just culled a bit from your profile, and I have spoken about that. But I would like to listen from you. What's your story? How did you? I know you started off as a lawyer and you're a teacher, a storyteller today. So, can you tell us about this interesting journey?
Um, I have been living and working in different countries for the last 28 years. My experiences have shaped my thinking, and while working in different countries, it has helped me recognize, inherent biases that are always against you. My journey started from Hong Kong, where I worked in Pricewaterhouse. My first day at work, my director told me, "No pants in the office." That was my introduction to what biases are, actually. When I was working, for example, in Saudi Arabia, in the American International School, Riyadh, I came across parents who wanted an American teacher for their child, since they wanted their child to have an American accent. Sometimes I had colleagues who wouldn't listen to my opinions or suggestions. They would say things like, "Your educational qualification doesn't count because you're from India." Breaking these kinds of biases, continuing to excel in my work, and setting new standards for the school to follow were some of my achievements. There are always biases wherever you go. Not letting those biases stop me is the lesson that I learned really well. Meeting people from all walks of life, observing what positive things do they bring to the table, changing the way things are done, and taking good care of myself so I don't fall into unconscious old patterns are some of the ways I stood my ground and brought about meaningful experiences in my life. So, whether I lived in Singapore or Hong Kong or Saudi Arabia, this was my guiding rule, that I have to make friends who are different from me. That helped me immensely.
What a wonderful way that you have, described about adapting yourself, and you have just skimmed through the surface of overcoming the bias. But can you flesh out some of the incidents so that it motivates and inspires our listeners? Because that's what it is about. Storytellers Cafe, we showcase storytellers who can motivate, inspire others so that they can, you know, take the teller or the resource person as an example and follow that,
Sure,
and kind of strengthen themselves.
sure.
So, Lakshmi, something that you like to discuss or tell us, share with us?
So I hear you saying that, Lakshmi, how did you break those biases? See, staying away from family in different countries, you have only yourself and your own family to lean on. And the only thing I knew was to work really hard, because, you see your own family working really hard, and that's all I knew. So I broke these biases by sheer hard work. I had to work in such a way that my students, the parents of my students, my colleagues, my supervisors had no reason to question my competence, be it my lesson plans or keeping students engaged or having a collegial relationship with your colleagues and supervisors, submitting all that was required on time so that my supervisors couldn't fault me at all. But it also meant that I worked 24/7 with sacrificing family time. My family was very understanding about it. My daughter used to wake up early in the morning, and my husband drove us to school early in the morning, before proceeding for his own work, my daughter used to help the classroom with setting up of the classroom boards and setting up of the class. I would write and practice songs with her in class. So by the end of the year, the parents who wanted an American teacher would hold my hand for a long time to say thank you. So that was some of the ways that I did overcome the biases that was against me. um, I also had tried to do things differently. Uh, for example, I developed innovative instruction methods in school to set new standards. I took all of the school's resources. For example, when my students had to learn about butterflies or wind or evaporation, I reached out to the high school science lab. I spoke to the teacher there. I would plan my students to take my students to the high school, and even got the high school students to pair with my students to set up some simple experiments. It had never been done before in the school's history. So, not letting the biases stop me, I was able to, achieve a lot more. I made friendships all across the school, people who spoke different from me. I had friends who helped me, and I helped them in return as well. So that was some of the ways I tried to break biases.
That's wonderful, Lakshmi. I also know that you started working at the Pathway School in Delhi, which is one of the premier institutions. And then you went on to augment your qualifications by studying at the Harvard School of Education as well as Columbia University. So could you tell us something about this? All this, in how did this help you? And did this give you an edge over others? Because I do know some of the new pre-primary schools that have been set up in India have teachers or principals from the Columbia University, from the School of Education. So this would be interesting. And of course, we'll go on to talk about storytelling, since you are trained to be a pre-primary teacher, you're Montessori trained, and we would love to listen.
Yes, my
Please.
experiences with Columbia University and teaching for understanding from Harvard Education Institute were one of my finest, learning curves that I had in my career. They enabled me to understand that why are you teaching this? What is the purpose? What is the goal? You actually start from there and work backwards. And that helped immensely with planning my lessons. And the thing is, the guiding question is, would you like to sit in your own classroom? Would I like to sit in my own classroom and listen to my own stories and my own teaching? If I do, then I'm doing something right. But if I don't, then I have to change, switch, do something. And one of the things that I felt that Columbia University really hones certain skills, for reading and for writing, especially for writing small moment stories, where they take one small moment and elaborate elaborate on that, to take out all the nuances, to teach the child, what did you feel, what did you think, what did you do? And I would actually enact all of that for my students. Say for example, we played against another classroom and we lost a game. So then, what did we feel? And I would actually enact it for my students. First, there would be laughter and there would be a lot of cackling, but that's fine. That's part of the fun, the joy of being in the classroom. And when they went out to write, they would come up with such words to tell me how they felt. There were tears rolling down their eyes, their mouth was down, their heartbeat was beating fast. So these kind of small nuances in the writing for a first grader or a second grader was just phenomenal, I thought. So that those were the skills that I honed, going to these universities. This really helped my teaching career, and also to understand, read the children, what are they trying to tell me, and plan my lessons accordingly, keep them engaged, choose my stories carefully. So it really helped me be a better teacher than I was before.
So do you think we can have a story from you? As you know, Lakshmi, the USP of Storytellers Cafe is stories, listening to stories. So if you have a special one on the theme of Women's Day, fine, but even any other story would also do.
I have, some favorite books that I always lean towards because they bring such joy every time I read it. So I would like to just tell you a snippet of two of my favorite stories. Um, you know, I figured out that stories bridge gaps and help us understand each other with the help of this book. It's called The Sandwich Swap, and it is written by Her Majesty Queen Rania of Jordan. This was inspired from her own life, from her own childhood. Salma and Lily, the main characters of the story, reach the true spirit of acceptance. Lily and Salma are best friends, and they always eat lunch together. Sure, they don't eat the same lunch. Lily eats peanut butter and a peanut butter sandwich, and Salma eats hummus and pita sandwich. What's that between friends? It turns out a lot. And although they don't say it out aloud, each thought the other's sandwich was gross and yucky. And before they know it, it's food fight in school. Can Lily and Salma put aside their differences and save their friendship? Or will a sandwich come between them? That's the story of the sandwich swap. You need to read the entire story.
Wonderful. Is that the entire story, or you've just given us an
I just
abridged?
gave you a abridged version because it's fun to actually read it and find out what happens. It's a picture book with very limited words, but it explains it all. And I have another favorite writer of mine, Mo Willems. All of Mo Willems' books are just phenomenal. They bring such joy to my heart. Um, and it's very engaging for young children, for young students. It's called Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus by Mo Willems. It was Willems' first book. It received a Caldecott honor. The plot is about a bus driver who has to leave. So he asks the reader not to allow the pigeon to drive the bus. The cheeky pigeon comes up with various excuses to drive the bus, but the reader keeps on telling him no, which aggravates the pigeon. This kind of book is rare as it allows the reader to participate in the story narration. So you can see, Usha, how every book brings something to the table, something interesting to the table.
Yes, absolutely. Every story is magic. When you were telling about the sandwich swap, it reminded me of this. It's an Arabic folk tale, friendship between two very good friends, Samir and Nadeem. And they're crossing the desert to go to the other side to sell their wares. They're merchants. And as it happens with friends, they start arguing. And the argument leads to fiery exchange of words when Nadeem slaps Samir on the face.
Mm.
Now, Samir is taken aback. He doesn't react, he always responds. So he's angry. He knows that how could his friend hit him? And he wanted to retaliate, but he thought, does this friendship count? Does it matter? I must have done something to aggravate this situation. That's what, prompted him to slap me. So he goes off because you need to cool down. You need to express your anger as well. So he goes off and takes a stick and writes on the sand, "Today my friend Nadeem slapped me." Now, Nadim's cooled down by now. He apologizes and he hugs his friend. And suddenly there is a wind blowing in the desert, which wipes away those letters, words written on the sand. And they continue to go to the other side, cross the mountains, and after a couple of months, they return back. They come to the same little oasis where there is a river flowing, and Samir is so hot that he takes off. I mean, he gets out of the camel and then quickly jumps into the river. But it had rained in the meantime, and there is an undercurrent which swiftly takes him and pulls him down. So Nadeem is watching this and he jumps into the river and pulls his friend to safety. And after Samir regains his breath, he goes to his carving tool, which is there in the saddle of the camel, and carves out on the rock, "Today, my friend Nadeem saved me." So the friend asks him, "Why did you do that? A couple of months back, you wrote it on the sand, and today you carved it on the stone." So Samir says that, when somebody hurts you or something, you would rather want the winds of change to wipe it away. But when someone does something good, you would rather like to etch it and
Right.
always remember it. So when you told me about the sandwich swap, I'm very curious to read that story. I know it's a picture book, so sometimes one has to see the picture book to understand, and pictures speak volumes,
True.
than words. So this is another thing. I would say that if it really matters, friendship or anything, reaction and response are two very key ingredients
True.
as to whether you respond or you react to something. So, reaction is your quick, immediate response. Response is when you take a moment and then you, answer or respond to a situation.
True.
That just reminded me of that story, Lakshmi.
Beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. Really nice. Really nice.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Lakshmi, I've been reading your profile and your career. I've seen that presently you're settled in Seattle. How is Seattle? How is the weather now? Is it beautiful? Is it still winter or spring is in the air?
Oh, Seattle is, Seattle is cold, cloudy, and rainy. That describes Seattle. But if you want me to tell you about Seattle summer, that is something absolutely different. It's brilliant. It's blue skies, and the flowers blossom. It's so different from the dreary winters that you will put up with the dreary winter just for the summer. Summers are absolutely gorgeous. Right now, we still have the dreary weather, but it is going away. I think in another couple of weeks, we will see the sun a lot more. Now it's still the clouds are there and it's still raining. But we have the Pacific coast. There's a lot of moisture that comes from the sea, Pacific Sea. So that's the reason Seattle is always like cold, and it doesn't snow very often, but when it snows, it's like really a lot. Otherwise, Seattle summer is the best.
I can imagine. I was in New York for the winter now, and I know how cold it gets, but I love the winter.
Yeah, yeah,
Lakshmi, I know you're a Bharatanatyam dancer, and
right.
you did something wonderful with the IB students. I
Yeah,
see using Abhinaya, and
yeah.
can you tell our viewers about that? What
Yes.
was that?
So this is, I would count this experience as a milestone in my career, because I was an elementary school teacher at the American International School, Riyadh. And the IB teacher and I, the IB theater teacher and I became good friends. And in the process of our conversation, she found out that I'm a Indian classical dancer. So she jumped at that and she said, "Why don't you come to and take a master class for my IB theater students?" Again, this had never been done or heard of, in the school. And I thought it was a golden opportunity to showcase my storytelling powers with my art form. It was a mixing of the two, the merging of the two. So now I had the challenge of keeping IB theater students engaged in learning all about Indian classical dance called Bharatanatyam. So then I had to plan my lessons. I had to keep my lessons engaged. But having trained in this and, in this art form, and I have been performing for decades, prepared me for this particular moment. Um, it was a rewarding experience because a lot of students had a lot of aha moments. Now, see, they are theater students, very well aware of expressions and the nuances of acting. But what they did not know, and this is the question I would ask, when I started teaching, I said, okay, so what is it about theater and dance that is the same? Like, you could say, oh, both are performers, miss, they do this. So I said, the thing about dance, I will tell you, when we are on stage and I want to tell somebody how happy I am to see them or how sad I am this happened, my expression has to be so clear and so loud that the person sitting at the last seat of the stage of the audience should be able to see me, should know what it is I'm doing. So my dance form is very exaggerated. It is not something simple in passing, like, it's just not a tender smile. It has to be, if it's a smile, it has to be like really a smile. If it is disgust, it has to be a disgust. So I needed to exaggerate and show my emotions. So they were like, oh, so this teacher's like, okay. And then I said, how many, I spoke about the Navarasas that they had never heard of. Like, the feeling of happiness, the feeling of sadness, the feeling of anger, and how we show that in our dance format. So that was again, aha, ooh, that, that kind of a moment I had. Then I said, how would a man walk in on stage and how a woman would walk on stage? So again, these were some small things, nuances that I showed to the students, and they were like I said, it was filled with a lot of aha moments. So as a teacher, I felt very rewarded. I said, okay, this is really good. It was a rewarding experience, as all these students had to write a paper about the class that I had conducted, and it was graded by the IB. And I'm happy to say all of them got very good grades. They did well. Now, the theater curriculum in American International School includes lessons from Bharatanatyam.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's kudos to you, Lakshmi. That's really wonderful. You also mentioned that you grew up listening to stories from your grandfather, as many of us. I think I became a storyteller because I listened to such wonderful stories that my grandmother told us during our summer vacations in Delhi,
Mm,
and that took me to magical lands. I met magical people,
mm,
and I knew that anything was possible in Storyland.
mm, mm.
So, is there any story that has has left its enduring impression on you that you would like to share with us?
Mm. There are so many, there are so many. I used to listen to, my grandfather used to narrate stories of Hanuman and Prahlad. And I kept asking him to repeat the same stories again and again. They were some of my favorite stories. The the acts of Hanuman, how he helped Lakshmana or how he helped Rama. These were some of the stories that kept me going constantly. And it was I think the story of Ramayana and Mahabharata, they stay with me forever. But now I think at my age, I question many things. What was the role of, for example, Draupadi? What was the role of Sita? What? And there are many writers who have written about their stories from their perspective. So it is interesting. My thinking process about these stories, I think, are I'm seeing them with new glasses, to see what is it that I'm missing when I read about them. And it is interesting. I don't think I'll be able to point out one thing about that I enjoy the entire story, because every time somebody comes to my house, that's the thing I tell them. Have you heard about Hanuman? Have you heard about Prahlad? And sure enough, I break into a story with them. So I think it is a gamut of stories. It's not just one, but the entire mythological stories is my favorite of all times.
Right. As you very well know, Lakshmi, that Prahlad's story is also Holika's story.
Holika
You
story,
know,
right?
I tell the story of Hiranyakashyap
Mm.
and his sister Holika and the wicked king and his good son. So, the
Wow.
good son of Prahlad, who, of course, strongly believes, has faith,
Mm.
that God is everywhere, and his
Mm.
father doesn't believe, and that's a beautiful story.
Mm.
And as to why we celebrate this festival and what happens in the Holika Dahan and
Mm.
all that.
Mm.
So, Prahalad, yes. So, I would think that has left its everlasting imagery in your mind.
Right.
And Hanuman is the superhero.
Hero,
Today,
yes.
children, the Indian superhero is Hanuman, who
Mm.
can fly anywhere and do anything,
Mm.
carry mountains and fly across the sea and fight the demons,
Mm.
rescue Sita, and all that, right?
Mm. Mm.
So, and if you look at mythology, since we're talking about Ramayana,
Mm.
I'm presently working on Surpanaka.
Oh.
You know, Surpanaka in certain other versions, Devdutt Patnaik has written in the Uttarakandam,
Mm.
she meets Sita
Mm.
and she makes fun of her that you've been deserted by your husband.
Mm.
Look at you now. You're forlorn. You're, in
Mm.
such a pathetic state. And Sita doesn't take that amiss. And a friendship develops between the two. And
Mm.
she tells Surpanaka, why don't you let go of this anger? How
Mm.
long will this, do you
Oh.
think anger will achieve anything?
Mm.
So why don't we enjoy the present moment? And she shares berries with her. So the
Oh.
sweetness of the berry
Mm.
brings about, transformation in Surpanaka,
Mm.
who forgets all the anger, the
Mm.
frustration, the
Mm.
revenge,
Mm.
and then becomes a young girl
Mm.
who just enjoys the taste of the berry, and they
Mm.
both run off and go in the garden. That's how that ends. There's something that I'm working on, something lost and found. We
Mm.
sometimes lose ourselves
Mm.
in the worldly, in our life, but then we find it back.
Right.
Something in our life triggers and we find our happiness back. As
Yes.
you know, World Storytelling Day, the theme is lost and found.
Mm. Mm.
So, this is also something where we lose ourselves to anger,
Mm.
resentment, revenge.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then when a very small gesture like tasting the berry,
Yes.
like the other Zen story, like the strawberry moments,
Mm.
which actually bring you back, center you, ground you,
Mm.
that it is these moments
Very
that,
true.
that's important,
Mm.
and not what I've been holding, all
Mm.
my life.
Mm. Mm.
So, and I truly believe our mythology, our stories from Puranas and mythology have so much wisdom in them.
Mm.
And
Mm.
today, if I'm a storyteller, it's because of those stories. And
Right.
I continue to delve and tell those stories because I find sheer joy in, because, like you said, I'm looking at them with new eyes, new
Eyes.
perspectives,
Right.
right?
Mm.
So now we have a thinking mind, so we can think and then interpret it,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
True. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And that's the reason I think, you question, an interesting conversation that I was a witness to between, my mother and my daughter. My mother would say, like, those good old days, and she would, break out about those good old days. My daughter would listen, but she would also remind my mother very gently, yeah, grandma, those good old days, yes, but it also meant that you could not go out and work, you could not do the things that you wanted to do at that time. So again, looking at it from a different angle altogether, it was very interesting to watch that, to observe that, what my mother took away from it and what my daughter took away from it. So that was an interesting experience I had.
Wonderful. See, that's what happens, So the generational bias or what it is, and sometimes you have to put yourself in the slipper of those people who come from a different era.
Hmm.
For example, I come from the 60s,
Hmm.
so my children are 90s.
Hmm. Hmm.
They are in the new millennials. So,
Right.
the thinking is so different.
True.
Lakshmi, coming back to you,
Hmm.
I see that presently you're somebody who just can't, uh, I wouldn't say sitting idle, because we don't sit idle even if we are stay at home moms,
True.
but you're continuously challenging yourself, and your present work teaching conversational English,
Hmm.
with a private institution in Hyderabad.
Hmm.
Can you share that with us?
Yes, sure. So I was introduced to a family charitable trust. The owners of a family charitable trust. Uh, it's called Vegesana Satyanarayana Raju Family Charitable Trust. The founder is V.S. Raju. He used to head the IIT Madras and IIT Delhi, and they opened a tuition center in Hyderabad. So when I came to the US, I was introduced to their daughter. And so one thing led to another. And of course, when she requested, would I have time? I just jumped at the opportunity and I said, sure. So while my calling to work as a teacher continues, but I have retired. I'm not actively teaching, but I go online and I am, part of this tuition center. This tuition center was started in 2015 to enhance the quality of education for the underprivileged students who attended the government schools. Most of these parents of these students were either maids, watchmen, or casual laborers. So, although the students attended the school, they could not take full advantage of their education. There was nobody to guide them with their homework or provide motivation or even understand the subject. So, with the advent of this tuition center, students were engaged in their own self growth. My role in the organization is to facilitate learning English. The first opportunity that I got was to train the teachers, the young teachers who were going out for interviews. They would face tremendous bias because they could not talk English fluently. It took a toll on their confidence. So my role was to build the confidence to help them with that interview process. So I would prepare questions and ask them, and we would have this conversations happening. But the more I got involved, so I got more opportunities to work with them. I also got opportunities to work with students who were writing their board exams. Now, board exams have a set English syllabus. What I did was I would give them examples, templates to understand what it is the question is asking, and continuously give them external support. This went on for a year, and I'm happy to say that one of the students, she actually got into regional engineering college. It was a wonderful moment at the center because that's when one realized that education is truly transformative. Now, currently, I am teaching the ninth and 10th grade students to speak and write in English. I have observed my students, the current batch, they have a burning desire to succeed against all odds. My classes take place early in the morning, but these students who participate, they come for class after doing their job of delivering, say, newspapers or milk, etc. They sit under tin roof and in garages to study and learn. So sometimes the concepts that I teach are kind of difficult, and there are time pressures, but the tenacity of the students, they never falter. So they keep me going, and they motivate me to be a better teacher each time I come for class. And so it's a mutual learning experience. From my experience, I can tell you that the students from this tuition center, they are working towards a tomorrow that's more equitable and fair. Students who defy expectations uh, when they are given an opportunity. So that is what they are working towards, an opportunity.
Yes, that's a wonderful thing, Lakshmi. This reminds me of our erstwhile President Kalam,
Mm.
who, as many of you know, listeners, that he did study under the lamp, the street lamp in
Mm.
Rameshwaram,
Right.
and then just look where it took him. He
Mm.
became the president of the biggest democratic country in the world.
So,
And so, dare to dream, of course, dream. He wrote a book on it,
mm,
you
mm,
know, dreams and aspire, and dreams will come true.
so
So, I hope all the listeners who are watching and listening, Lakshmi Manian doesn't have any footprints
social media
on
footprints.
the social handles like Facebook or Instagram, but she does have her Twitter account, which I will ask her to tell us, and also her email.
Hmm.
So if you're interested, please do write to her or follow her on Twitter. So Lakshmi, can you just tell us your Twitter handle and your Gmail,
Yes,
Hotmail account?
right. So my Twitter handle is hashtag luxmanian, luxmanian, luxmanian1. And my Gmail is very simple, subbalakshmimanian at gmail.com. And my Hotmail is luxmanian@hotmail.com. So these are the ways you can reach me, and of course I have stories and videos to share if anybody's interested. It would be wonderful if they would like to get in touch with me. Just to go back, on break the bias. I don't know if you're. I'm sure you and your audiences must be aware of a wonderful, what should I say, an example of break the bias was given by the former Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. She called out her opposition leader on misogyny and sexism. And this is what she said. She said, "What you need is a mirror." She told him when he was saying, like, the other party is, she said, "What you need is a mirror." And she goes on to give a litany of repulsive double standards of this person. And she continues when confronted by a journalist when he asked, in modern Australia, there is an underrepresentation of women, to which the opposition leader replies, "Is that such a bad thing?" Like, so this prime minister, the former prime minister, she gave such a wonderful speech in the parliament against this opposition leader. I think it would be wonderful if your audiences can, YouTube her and listen to her. It's a great video on that. Just wanted to share that information.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Please, definitely, please do Google or go to the YouTube and listen to this. Yes, women all over are breaking the bias today, and they don't have to shout it out from rooftops. We are all doing it,
Hmm.
and it's very important to voice.
Hmm.
You know, not to stifle things inside.
Right.
It's very, very important to talk about it. Unspoken words can be quite catastrophic.
Right.
So, Lakshmi, what would you like to leave us with? Since the last 28 years you've been away from the motherland,
Hmm.
and you have just told us about all the bias that you've overcome.
Hmm.
Of course, um, we do understand, I mean, not going into very many details of those, but
Hmm.
how you have adapted.
Hmm.
What would you like to tell our viewers? Because most of the listeners and viewers are all storytellers, budding storytellers, or even, children,
Hmm.
audience, general audience who's listening.
Hmm.
What would you like to leave them with? Thoughts?
So I have a line that I go by. Um, you have to look at your own friend circle and see whether it reflects the world that you want to live in. If it does, great, good, maintain it. If it doesn't, then do something about it. So I try very hard to have a very inclusive circle of friends from all walks of life. And that way I listen to their stories and find out, like, how privileged am I? I mean, I've had the opportunity to study, to learn, to work. There are many who are not able to. So I do try to have a friend circle that is wide and completely diverse. So that would be my message to your audience. Look at your friend circle and see if that's the world you want to, does it reflect the world you want to live in? And if not, please do something about it.
Thank you, Lakshmi. This reminds me of this favorite story of mine, which is a Cuban folk tale where the wise grandmother tells her granddaughter,
Hmm.
choosing a husband from many is the most easy part,
Hmm.
but picking the right one is the most difficult.
True.
And then she gives her a wonderful advice
Hmm.
how to pick the right one. Well,
Oh,
that's another story. But like you said, how you pick and choose your friends,
mm,
that reflects the world that you want it to be.
yeah.
Right? Wonderful. That's such a nice thought to leave our viewers with. I would like to remind our viewers that you're listening to Lakshmi Manian, my guest tonight on Storytellers Cafe, on this very special day of World Storytelling Day, as well as Holi, as well as Women's Day from Seattle, United States. And Lakshmi has spoken about all her bias, what that she's overcome, traveling to different countries, working in different countries, because it generally happens when you work, it happens at the workplace.
Workplace, right.
So please do watch the episode on Storytellers Cafe. As you all know, it is archived. If you missed it at 9 p.m. or at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time or 8:30 a.m. Seattle Time, Pacific Time, you can always go back to YouTube and just type Storytellers Cafe with Lakshmi Manian and you will get this episode, or on Facebook, Bharat FM Facebook page, and you can get this in our list, on Storytellers Cafe. So please do watch and share it, because it's wonderful to share stories, as well as when you listen to people who inspire and motivate us, like Lakshmi did today, because it's wonderful to talk to a person who has worked in different countries, different religions, Saudi Arabia, though today it is opened up, but for a woman to be there, and also the bias that we face in schools. I understand you completely, and how to overcome it, and not to be subdued. And we are forever facing that, the challenges, but we are overcoming that.
Right.
So thank you, Lakshmi, for that wonderful, wonderful interview and the conversations that we had. And it's been a pleasure to host you on Storytellers Cafe. And I thank you on behalf of Bharat FM for giving us this opportunity to showcase yet another woman achiever, a storyteller, who can show us the path and help others to follow. That's what it is. We just need certain idols, certain uh, uh,
A role model.
heroines, yes, sheroes, or
Right.
uh, to show us that this can be done.
Right.
It's not difficult, and
Yes.
many are doing it. Many
Yes.
are unsung heroes.
True.
I see examples of that in my own house, my maid, or the other people who come home. Maybe it be your dhobi, or anybody in the restaurant. You see them, and
True.
then you learn from them,
Yes.
and nobody talks about them.
True.
So but at least we get to be inspired. So
Yes.
it's been great having this conversation with you, and I wish you all the best, more success to you in your teaching career, and wishing you a very happy World Storytelling Day
Thank
from
you.
me
Thank
to
you. Thank you,
you.
Usha.
Yes.
Thank you for this opportunity. Truly, it was a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And, Lakshmi, next week
Hmm.
on the 27th,
Hmm.
which is the final episode on Storytellers Cafe celebrating Women's Day,
Hmm.
here we are not man complaining at all. We have a male storyteller.
Oh,
So, and we will get his perspective about women and the bias. So, let's listen to a male voice. So,
hmm.
stay tuned. I'll see you next Sunday, same time, same place. So, till then, it's goodbye and a good day from you, from me to you. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.